When it comes to fantasy anime, it's really hard to find one that's fun to watch without having a world and plot that's way too overwhelming and way too complicated. But the one that I think stands out from the crowd is Goblin Slayer. It may not be the best, but it does a lot of things right without going way too over the top thanks to its execution. My name is Lou, My name is Lou, or call me InTheEnd like my username, and I'm here to tell you why you should give Goblin Slayer a chance, and why I think you may be sleeping on it. Like other anime, the world of Goblin Slayer is inspired by fantasy RPGs and other games like Dungeons & Dragons. Characters learn to become heroes so they can fight evil and live a life of adventure, and along the way, they build their ranks so they can become higher skilled adventurers. Basic stuff, right? But what this show does really well is that it does not shy away from the dark stuff, because this is a world where characters can easily die.
This is my swamp!
Sorry, I couldn't help it, Please forgive me. But in all seriousness, this show does a really good job of setting a dark and grim tone from the very beginning, even if it does get a little too violent or graphic. Obviously, this isn't some grand adventure in the Great White somewhere. The show is based off light novels under the same name, and though I'm pretty sure they're being faithful to the source material, just a heads up in case you can't stomach disturbing scenes. Though they introduce a bunch of other characters, the main star of the show is the man himself, the Goblin Slayer, who has a special talent for killing goblins. And the dude is one badass character, though his obsession with goblins is too comical that all he thinks about is killing goblins. Along the way, he forms a team including a girl who's a priestess, an elf who's an archer, a dwarf, and some sort of lizard man. And together they... wait a minute. Am I seeing things? Just nothing. Anyway, they... Hey, wait a minute, that's lambus bread from Lord of the Rings! Yo, Token, they're stealing your shit! But as a Lord of the Rings fan, I do love these references. Anyway, all 5 of them work as a team and venture out to kill as many goblins. And these are badass and fun characters. They don't get any major character development, but seeing them work and bond together is very, very entertaining. What I enjoyed most about this series was just how simple the plot was. The world looks a lot bigger than what it seems, and there are characters that are battling against much bigger threats and villains. Specifically, the so-called Demon King that's been resurrected and a huge epic war is going on against them. But it feels like we're missing out on an entirely different show. And instead, we focus on some random town in some random region, focusing on a random adventurer whose main intent is just to kill some random goblins. It's like telling a story in the Lord of the Rings universe, but instead of focusing on the war against Sauron and the fate of Middle-earth, the main character is some random dude who's trying to kill all the giant spiders in the world. Also, nothing against Samwise Gamgee. He's still the best. Some of my favorite episodes are the ones that actually have very little fight scenes and are just characters doing chores and interacting with each other. And thankfully, these characters have unique personalities and make the show fun to watch. There's just one problem with all of them, and it's a small nitpick. Actually, no, it's a big nitpick. They don't have any names! If you see the credits or look them up, it's literally just the character's job or personality. Priestess, elf archer, and just cowgirl. Literally just cowgirl. Like, what the fuck? Look, just call her Tammy, her fake Legolas, and her Otis. See? Job done, huh? That was easy. Those are just nitpicks though, but besides that, the show doesn't rely so much on huge stories or character arcs. But regardless, the show is still fun to watch, all thanks to its execution. But let's talk about what Goblin Slayer is mostly known for. The action, baby. The series isn't always action-packed, but when it does deliver, it delivers balls-to-the-wall fight scenes. Also, listen to the music here. It is so insanely epic. The music sets the tone perfectly for the scene. Whether it's heavy orchestrated rock music for the battles, or a more melancholic or sad melody to set a more emotional moment. For such a short series, the composers put a lot of effort into making such a memorable soundtrack. A soundtrack that I dare say may be better than The Lord of the Rings. Hey, it's not my fault that I keep bringing up The Lord of the Rings. He started it. As I mentioned before, what makes Goblin Slayer work so really well is just the simplicity of the show. It's not trying to tell some epic grand story or anything. It feels like we're just living in this fantasy world, and though it's very generic like other anime, this world does have consequences, it does have risks, and not only are the characters aware of them, but they are smart, and they do learn and adapt in the scenario that they're in, which makes them that more likable. If you keep your expectations balanced, then you might really enjoy Goblin Slayer for what it is. A really badass anime. As when I was making this review, I just got the announcement that they're working on Goblin Slayer Season 2, so fuck yeah! Even if you do finish the series, I also recommend watching The Goblin Crown, the Goblin Slayer movie that came afterwards. It's also really good. As of now, Goblin Slayer is available on Crunchyroll and Funimation. And speaking of Funimation, they are the ones that did the English voiceover for Goblin Slayer, which is the next thing I want to talk about, the dub.
Are you in or are you out?
It's you who's out, Gobby. Out of your mind.
Okay, obviously that wasn't the real one. But, in all seriousness, I do want to make a separate video about how I think English dubs, English voiceovers, are vastly underrated, and people are too harsh on them, and I think people should give them a chance. So, I want to end my review off by recommending the English version of Goblin Slayer. Obviously, the Japanese one is better, but I do think the English one does a good job of translating the dialogue with very convincing voices.
I'm 2,000 years old. And you're how old?
107.
Oh my! Is that all? You look older. Much older. Those wrinkles. Poor man.
I think the entire English cast does a good job of making some fun voices for these characters. I only have one criticism though, and that has to do with the English voice actor for the Goblin Slayer, who is Brad Hawkins, and I think he has a cool voice, but it doesn't really fit the character.
Who are you and where did you come from?
I am Goblin Slayer.
Yeah, it's more of my opinion though. Not only do I think the Japanese is better with a deeper voice, but I think Brad is trying too hard to make the character sound a little too badass. And it almost feels like he's trying to do an impersonation of Master Chief or someone else. That's all I have to say about the dub, and I still recommend it. Well, I hope my video did pique your interest in the series, especially if you are a fan of the genre. Thank you so much for seeing my review, and if you like my video, please subscribe so I can make more. Take care and see you in my next video. Also glad I went all this way without making a Doom reference. This does not count.